Before the Green Beret, Javier Echols stood in controlled chaos, an MP enforcing orders where structure barely held. That wasn't enough. He stepped into special forces where authority disappears, accountability is absolute, and every decision carries weight long after the mission ends. No cameras, no applause, just pressure. When the uniform came off, the structure vanished, but the discipline stayed. Javier didn't reinvent himself, he adjusted. Today, he goes by DJ Halo. Not chasing a stage, not escaping the past, using music as a way to stay present, grounded, and connected. This isn't about reinvention. It's about learning how to move forward without leaving any part of himself behind. On this episode of Tactical Tequila Podcast with your host, Matt Wilson. If you enjoy the show, hit the like button, subscribe, and share it to your social media platforms. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show. Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Matt Wilson with Tactical Tequila Podcast. And tonight's show is an amazing show. Good friend of mine, Javier Echols, is on the show. He's lived inside discipline at every level, from enforcing order as an MP to executing precision as a Green Beret Special Forces soldier. Javier Echols didn't leave structure, he carried it. What hit hardest wasn't combat, it was learning how to slow down when the mission ended. He goes by DJ Halo now. Music became his way to decompress, process, and stay level when the noise finally dropped. This isn't about war stories. It's about control, transition, staying grounded when the uniform comes off. Javier, DJ Halo, welcome to the show.
Really happy to be here.
So, we go back, way back, 2003. We were MPs together. You were a squad leader and I was in first squad, and, I was in third squad.
Which company was it?
2004. So it was in the 108th.
Okay. All right. And Sergeant Underwood's platoon then?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And I know that sounds crazy, but and I've been in so many squads and so many platoons and so many different detachments, and it almost seems like a different person lived that, especially so far back. It's almost like it's different sections of my life. So it's really hard. Before Fort Bragg, I can barely remember the units, what they look like, what the inside look like, and all that stuff. So I will ask you questions from time to time like that. I apologize.
No apologies necessary. And I'm sure that you've seen your fair share of stuff that you'd like to forget anyway.
Yeah.
I kind of want to take it back to the early days in the MP Corps. Before you wore the Special Forces tab, you wore the MP Broussard. What did that version of Javier believe his future looked like?
I didn't know, I didn't know anything about the military when I joined, So I was I started off as a orphan, and I belonged to the state of Texas. And then, I went through the foster system, and I was split up from my sisters, but then I was adopted. But I say all that to say that the family that adopted me was amazing, but they were almost my age I am right now, and I was like a baby. I was like 1 or 2 years old. And that age gap. So by the time I turned almost, was it 20? My dad was just mid to late 60s. So I didn't really have that like um kind of like thought process about like what life looked like after high school, like at that point in time in life, and where I was at, like graduating high school was the goal. And everybody's asked me that for decades. What made you join? I had absolutely no reason. I was literally in the mall. It was the first recruiter that talked to me. I kind of shrugged my shoulders. And I said, yeah. But what I found about myself, how you kind of like discover yourself as you get older and older, is that's pretty much me in a nutshell. Like I've always had a explorer's heart, an adventurous heart. Yeah, go try it. So when I became an MP, like I didn't know anything about it. I literally had no idea. He's the one who was just like, this is what you should do. And I said, all right. And then I got to Fort McClellan. I don't even think that place is open anymore. Um,
No, I think Cat Williams bought it. I think
yeah,
I think he made it into a studio.
like a movie studio.
Yeah.
It makes sense. It's a lot of land. Nobody really wants it.
Yeah.
It's in the middle of nowhere.
I'd seen it in an interview with him somewhere, and I can't remember where. But he had said that he purchased Fort McClellan.
Okay, that's pretty awesome. But yeah, I got there and like I had gotten into a lot of trouble when I was in high school. I was like in and out of boys' home in my high school years, and run-ins with like law enforcement. So they made, and I've never told anybody this, but one of the things I did remember is that they made me like, I had to write like essays on like why I should be allowed to be an MP. And to this day, I have no idea what I wrote. And that was before I ever went, what they refer to as downrange. I don't know what they call it now, but that was like when you are getting like your first 2 or 3 days there. I don't remember if you got your uniforms after you went to basic, or I don't really remember. But it was literally in like the first 2 or 3 days, like they called me into so whatever the office was, and I didn't really know. But yeah, they were like, hey, we've been reviewing your background, and we don't know if we should like allow you. And yeah, I had to write a bunch of essays. I still don't know what I wrote. I don't remember, but I guess that was sufficient because they sent me to basic training. Now that I look back, I assume that they probably were never, because like, you had to be retarded to not fit pass. So I don't know if they were going to kick me out, but you don't know nothing, man. I was an 18-year-old kid. I thought they were serious. I was like, all right, but yeah, I don't think I've ever told anybody that.
Well, and as you mentioned that, MPs live in the gray between order and chaos. What did policing soldiers in combat zones teach you about leadership?
I mean, it wasn't so much for me like policing, soldiers. It just kind of like leadership evolved for me, not really because of my job, but more of like the level of responsibility. Because when I first got to Fort Polk, and we would work the road, I didn't really do much. I was a very quiet base. You know what I mean? It's very quiet. And at that point in time, you just didn't really pull people over unless it was just something ridiculous, and that didn't really happen. I would say that 90% of the time they just drove around and make sure you weren't like falling asleep. But what's weird is like at that early age when I just made like E3, E4, E3 and E4, I really found my niche in the field. I was really good at it. I don't know why, but I just was. And two, a lot of people don't know, like I got to Fort Polk, I want to say December 95 or January 96. And by like June of 96, I was only there 4 months and we deployed. So I was gone. And we went to Bosnia for I4. And I was there for like 10 months. And all we did was literally the same thing we did in Iraq. we drove around in Humvees, except at that point in time, I wasn't a team leader of squad. I was just a gunner, so every day, and I had a 60 and a Mark 19, just, rotated back and forth. So every day you got up, put the gun in the truck, drove around the freezing cold. I had no idea what was going on. Uh, and we drove through random towns. And I just think that, like, as I grew older, I was just like, man, if this ever happens to me again, I'm going to make sure, like, my guys know what's going on. Cause I always felt like lost, you know, but it was the same, you come back, you clean your gun, you go work out, and then like 9 hours later. And then two, man, that unit to this day, it's funny. And this is something I found out later in life. I had the hardest first arm of my entire career at 18. And what's funny is he was Bullet's drill sergeant. It's a small world, right? He was Bullet's drill sergeant when he was a drill sergeant, when Bullet went through basic training. So he knew who I was talking about. He was my first sergeant, and he was an asshole. It's hilarious now because now I'm on a Facebook chat with him. He's an old man, and he talks to me all the time. He did not talk to me then. That man lived and breathed Army. That's all he knew. And I hated him, but like, as I just got, as it happens as a man, like as you get older and older and older, you really start understanding sometimes the pearls of wisdom that men like that deliver to you, especially at that like formative of an age. When you're 18 and 19, you're just like, this dude's an asshole, but his level of attention to detail, I don't think I've ever seen again, ever, from anyone. I did 28 years. I never ran into anyone like that again. So I feel blessed and cursed, that I got him so young, but I think that was really what started me on like I wasn't allowed to work the role. I deployed very early. It was a very long deployment. And because it was a deployment, I was stuck with him, 24 hours a day. And you can't buy that. You know what I mean? You just can't. I would have never got that in garrison, I guess is what I'm saying. Yeah. That really forged me. And by the time I came back, I started doing the little like Soldier of the Month boards. Won them, Soldier of the Quarter board. I won them. Another funny story. I went to like the Fort Polk, like it was either Soldier of the Year or Soldier of the Quarter board. And like the day before the board, I had a Pontiac Grand Prix and I had two Sherwin-Vega 12s in it. Huge amp. I had ran out my DPP card, the Dumb Privates plan, put all that stuff in there, and it was loud, super loud. I loved it. I mean, I'm a DJ. I've loved music since, I was 5, 6 years old. I've had nothing but loud systems. Anyways, I pulled into the parking lot, and some dude walks up to me, and I had to like write my name down. Well, it just so happens that like the post-sergeant major was like making dudes write kids' name down and pulled into the shopette with like loud stereos. And I went to the board the next day, and he was sitting on the board and he was like, didn't you get in trouble yesterday for having a loud stereo? So I had to deal with that. And of course I had that same first sergeant, the world was going to end. So I had to sit at the shopette. So I didn't win post soldier of the year or whatever, but I did end up doing music duty at the shopette. A lot of interesting stories like that. That's actually the first time I probably thought about that in 30 years. That kind of stuff forges you.
Of course. And going back to your first deployment and even other deployments that you did as an MP, were there any decisions that I guess that you had to make judgment calls on that there were no clear or right answers?
Yeah, a ton of them. Like it was just, I don't think people truly understood the effect of 9/11. When I went to Bosnia, I didn't even know where that was on the map. All I knew is I got on a plane in Louisiana. And we got off in Germany, and then we got on a bus, and we drove for what felt like days. When we went to Afghanistan, man, the first time in 2001, nobody knew shit. That's just the way it was. Nobody knew shit. Nobody knew where we were supposed to go. Nobody knew how we were going to get there. Nobody knew what we were supposed to get. And then when we got there, nobody knew kind of what to do. We really just did the most random stuff, you know. And by that time, though, I was, I'm trying to think when I got to Bragg. June, July 2000. Yeah. And then I went to BNOC sometime that summer, 2001. And I graduated again in September 11th. And then I was deployed again by like November 01. So my time at Bragg, same thing. Like I didn't get to do the road thing. I just, like, yeah.
Yeah, I think the entire time that I was on Bragg, I worked the road maybe like 4 months. And that was in between my first deployment and my second deployment.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. Like a lot of kids in that era, they never got that experience. Like they almost don't even know what it is. It was almost like, what's the word I'm looking for? Relief time, rest time. And then by the time they did it, they didn't really know what to do. So they just kind of like sat still, you know? I'm just trying to think, man. I did 1, 2, 3. I did 4 deployments as an MP. And all of them were over 10 months. So they were long. So that's a lot of thought to go through. But probably in 6'5", I forgot what happened. But he's on my Facebook too. I just talked to him the other day because our kids are going to college. I guess it's about that time. But I was a squad leader. We went downtown. No, we didn't. We had we were at an IP station overnight somewhere in Mosul. And I don't really remember where. I don't even know what the hell we were doing. But then I got a random call like on the radio. And I think what had happened is, and you know, to this day, I never really got clarification. Like I just don't know. I don't know. But I think that somehow the Iraqi police, because remember we had disbanded, I don't know if you remember or not, but the first trip to Iraq, we had disbanded the Iraqi army. And I think, well, I know that we were supposed to make payouts to them basically so they wouldn't turn into like, I guess, insurgents or whatever.
Mujahideen.
Yeah. But it was, and now thinking back on it, this is ludicrous sounding, but it was the Iraqi police's job to help pay these dudes. And basically what I think was happening was, you know, a former Iraqi army guy would come up, you know, would say he was a specialist. And he was like, hey, I'm here for my monthly specialist pay. And they'd be like, oh, that document's not real. Go away. Well, they did that enough until like a mob formed outside of this police station. And I think the Iraqi police started shooting into the crowd. And when I got the call to like go over there, it was literally just kind of like, hey, go check shit out. Man, I had no idea what I was walking into. Man, so we pulled in there, just 3 trucks. And like I said, like that, it's just so far back in my memory, but it's always stuck with me. Anyways, I got my truck spread out. It was fucking chaos. It was shooting everywhere. But people were like coming up and they were throwing like not grenades, not Molotov cocktails, but kind of like a mixture of it. I'm still to this day not really sure what it was. But so I was in the middle of the truck. And what's funny is like one of like the certificate of appreciations that the MP battalion gave out at that time has that picture of my truck on it. I don't even know who took that picture. I have no idea. But anyways, I had my truck spread out. Like I had a truck up in front of me. And I don't even remember who the team leader was. Like, I have no idea. I think it was Dempsey. No, it wasn't Dempsey. Maybe it was Dempsey. I don't remember. I have to call him and ask. I can't remember. But McKenzie was in the other truck but I don't think he was my team leader. That's what I mean. Like I literally cannot even remember who my team leaders were. But they threw like a Molotov cocktail, something, something, something under like my rear truck, and it blew up. And Kinsey caught shrapnel. And I think the medic was a she. And I'm almost willing to bet it's the same medic that got hurt in 05 with 6.5. I can't remember what her name is. But they walked up on like a V-bed or something. It was like a disguised V-bed or something. It was Spradlin's squad, the male Spradlin. But anyway, so the grenade went off. He got hit in the leg. And I'm telling you, like, this is like hour 4 of chaos. And nobody really ever came. Like, Quest squad, they came, but then they left like 10 minutes later. I mean, he wasn't in charge then. He was a gunner. It was Perry, Staff Sergeant Perry. May he rest in peace. It was his squad. But yeah, for whatever reason, they turned around and left. I mean, I used to mess with Quest about it, but he had no control. He was a gunner. You know what I mean? And then it was just us again. And we were out there with these motherfuckers for hours. It was a lot of human beings, and they were fucking angry. Then I shot at a lot of people that day. But I always was just kind of like, should I have like, just like, should I have brought the truck in? Should I have spaced it out more? Should I have, I don't know. But that bothered me because that truck burned to the ground. Yeah, that truck burned to the ground. Yeah.
At which point, while you were an MP, did you realize that you were, I guess, destined for more?
In 05. I was ETSing after that deployment. Even despite everything that happened on that deployment.
Is there something or someone that, persuaded you to stay in?
Nah, it was all me. I literally was sitting in the shower one day and I was just like, I'm going to go try this. And I went and talked to the recruiter. And that's the biggest gamble I took in that's easily the biggest gamble I took in my 28 years, was that one decision. Because, so I was at that, I was probably at when did that happen? 2006? Yeah. So I was right at 11 years. So I had just finished like the last time that you can reenlist. So the next time was like, you got to stay in forever. And it was like March. And my ETS was like July, because that's when I came in. July or August, something like that. So I only had like 2 or 3 months. I had like a month or 2, and then I would have started like clearing and gone on terminal leave. Yeah, it just, in 05, man, I was just like, I just think I can do more. I don't feel like I'm like making a difference. That's what it felt like. Like, I never really told anybody that, but I felt like we were just kind of driving around in circles, like, and kind of like scratching at the surface, I got way different feelings on it now, now that I look back, but then at that moment, I was still like all in. But I just felt like I was just, yeah, I felt like I could do more. I just say that, without sounding arrogant, but yeah, I didn't think I was doing enough.
As you did more, walk me through earning your Green Beret. What did it demand from you beyond the physical aspect?
It's my time. I can never get back.
Does that ever bother you?
All the time. All the time. Most people, it takes on average 16 months to get all the way through the Q course, and we don't calculate selection to the Q course because it's just so varied. Some kid can go to selection his first month in Korea, right? But he's got to do his full tour before he comes back to the Q. Well, it ain't got nothing to do with the Q course, right? Whereas another kid who's on brag can like finish selection and his unit will let him go. Or his unit will make him deploy, then especially at that time, when everybody was, we were hurting for human beings and stop lossing. And it was just a lot of, I don't think people really truly understand like the craziness that the U.S. Army was going through at that point in time. I took the most demanding academic route for sure. But on average, it takes about 15 months just from cycle starts, school dates, et cetera, to graduate. And it took me I started February. I went to selection in June 2006. And I started the Q course February 07 and I graduated April 2009 because I was a medic. And the medic course was 57 weeks. Until to this day, that was the most academically intensive thing that I've ever done. So you start your not softness, SOCM at the time. It probably has a different name now, but at the time you start your SOCM class, Special Operations Combat Medic, and it's Ranger medics, it's SEAL medics, and then it's Navy corpsmen who were going into MARSOC. And that's kind of like, and the civil affairs medics. I don't know if the PSYOP medics are there. I think they are now, but I don't know. I was over 2 decades ago. But that's kind of like your starting class. And you do that for 6 or 7 months. And then you graduate and all those other students kind of go away. And the 18 series remain behind. And that last 5 months is the actual Special Forces Medical Sergeant course. So you got to do another 5 months. And then when you graduate that, then you can actually be an 18 Delta. But if you fail that portion, you're just a 68 Whiskey 1, which is mean you're a Ranger qualified medic, right? Like you go to Ranger Battalion, Some of the SEALs, some of them stay and do the SFMS portion with us, and then they would be SOITIC, Special Operations, Independent Duty Corpsmen, but they would still be like SO4s or SO5, which is like a Special Operator 4, Special Operator 5, but just a Navy version. Rangers, they never did that. Civil Affairs, PSYOPs, they never did that. And then the corpsmen who were with MARSOC, they never did that. So only Deltas, 18 Deltas, and SEALs would do that portion, the long portion. And PJs, they have their own school because they actually split off from our school right around 2000, 2001.
Now, and as an 18 Delta, I mean, you're basically everything that a doctor ensues, right? Like,
no, I mean, it's a very glorified way of saying it, but I would say that it's really hard to put an 18 Delta into a sentence. But I would say that our best attribute is that we can keep someone alive in incredibly difficult environments, 2 to 3 to 4 days, without being able to get them to a for real medical facility. You know what I mean? But I didn't know what a trauma surgeon know. I mean, I guess it's not like that, but we knew enough to keep them alive. And that is incredibly hard because you are a 2-man show and a lot of times 1-man show, because what happens is a lot with us is especially during that era, half of your team which is only like 4 dudes, 5 guys. You would go somewhere and you would set up shop. And then the other 4 or 5 guys would go somewhere else and you'd be completely away from one another, And then on top of that, you deal with a lot of just weird stuff that you don't see in America anymore. Like I remember treating a lady or a baby for impetigo. I don't think anybody in America has had impetigo for 50 years. So seeing it, in person, kind of like, oh my God,
now,
Yeah.
As you mentioned that, what is one thing that no one prepared you for going into special forces?
Oh man, that's all of it. All of it. And the reason I say that is one easy phrase is that the whole nature of the job is ambiguity. That's the whole nature of it. So it's really hard to prepare somebody for a situation that hasn't happened yet. Does that make sense? You know, we would do 2-3 months of prep to fly into Afghanistan to go to a certain area and do a certain job. We would literally get on the tarmac in Bagram and they'd be like, hey, you're changed. You're no longer going to that place. You're actually going to the opposite side of the country to do a completely different thing, and you just have to be like, all right. And then you land there and there's nothing. It's just So I would just say just the ambiguous nature of the job. Like and they psychologically assess you. That's a really big thing, especially through selection. Like you have to be able to like just figure it out. Like things like that can't shake you. They can't make you become unstable. You have to remain grounded. You know what I mean? And there's really no training on earth that can prepare you for that because that's mental. I mean, they try, and there's definitely markers that you'll fail at it. I think selection has that down really well, actually. Guys who will absolutely fail at that. Guys who need, there's nothing wrong with them, but there are men who need explicit guidance. Not that they're not intelligent or incapable, but that's just how they operate best. I have always, even when you knew me, like been able to kind of just make it up as I went along. And I would say that was what you were never really prepared for, just the true ambiguous nature of the job.
Now, as you talk about how ambiguous it is, how much of it is combat and how much of it is more patience, restraint, and judgment?
And then again, that depends on what group you went to, like if you went to third group, that's all you saw was Afghanistan for probably 20 straight years. That's all they did. You know, um, if you ever check the Fayetteville Observer, so many third group guys, were getting in trouble. And a lot of people just be like, like those guys are undisciplined. They don't have any, they don't have any discipline, but that's not what it was. What you were seeing is just guys who were literally doing 14, 15 straight years of combat ops. And they were just coming home kind of like just unwinding. Like they just were snapping, just doing the craziest of stuff. Because when you live life on the edge like that constantly, you kind of get like this hyperfixation on the need to have that like adrenaline spike. Or the flip side of it, you kind of get this almost inner arrogance that I can get away with do whatever I want to do and nothing will happen, and because at the beginning of the wars, you didn't really see that. But I remember like 2015, 2017, 2018, those guys were really starting to get in trouble. Like a lot. But yeah, that's 17 because the regular army shipped out of Afghanistan like 2014, 2013. So that left us. So when we flew into places, it was us and the bad guys. And you went at it. They had nobody else to focus on except you. And by then, a decade and a half in, they knew what's the word I'm looking for? COAs, our TTPs. They knew what we looked like. The one thing I can say that I've always been thankful about the Taliban is that, they hate fighting at night. It was literally like they checked out. As soon as the lights came back on in the morning, they checked back in. It was like that cartoon where like, I don't know if it was Wile E. Coyote and the dog where they were like checking out at the end of the day. Like they were done like trying to shoot each other. But that is literally the best explanation that I can give you. It's what it felt like, just like as soon as the nightfall came, they were just like, all right, we're done. We'll see you guys again in the morning. Or like during their prayer times, like we would eat. You would know, like their guns would go silent, be like, all right, they're praying or doing their afternoon siesta. And you would just like go sit down. But all of it was patience and restraint because there was nobody but you. That's what I mean, like that anonymity to do whatever you wanted to do. Nobody would ever know. But you have to live with it, you know. And by that time, I was really becoming senior, you know, because, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2010, 2009, I was in Afghanistan all those years. It's crazy now I think about it. But 2012, I wasn't because it's when we bracked. We bracked out of brag. That's the reason the 3rd Battalion got a break. But yeah, 29, 2010, 2011, 2013, 24. I was in Afghanistan all those years. So I had become senior, like just in the Army in general. You know, I was almost coming up on 20 years. And it was right before I took a team in 2014. I don't know, somewhere around there. So I was on like, what we used to call ME1, Main Effort 1, and I was usually in charge. It'd be me and the captain, and the team sergeant would go with supporting Effort 1 with the warrant, and they would be in charge. But like I said, you'd be in different places, and it's just me because he's doing captain stuff, and they were busy, very, very busy. And it was on me to move machine guns, send out mortar rounds, all right, we're this. All right, we're going to go set up over here. All right, we're going to do this. All right, I got 25 people getting on this Chinook. All right, I got 2 stupid ass Afghan dudes running off. Let me go get them real quick, But man, you could do whatever you wanted. There wasn't nobody out there. Wasn't nobody out there. This is you and your conscience. Oh, but like I said, like I had just learned from such a young age. And then after that, like, so many combat trips by that point, like restraint was easy for me because I kind of understood like the big picture of like, even if we do, do this, the only thing we're going to do is put ourselves at risk, um, and it's not really going to change much anyway. You know what I'm saying?
Do you feel like for having so many combat tours, do you feel like any of it was ever just kind of going through the motion?
No, because they were intense. That's kind of why. You couldn't. We go out there and somebody would die. She'll snap you right back into it really quick. And like I said, like at a certain point, like when the regular army was, phasing back into the large bases, it was just us out there. And they would try to overrun your base. They would absolutely try to overrun it. So like you never really got to take like that time, off. You couldn't.
So going back to Special Forces training, everything from selection to, you get through the 18 Delta course. What tested you the hardest and what did it strip away from you?
I mean, I don't honestly, other than my youth, I don't think it really stripped away anything. Like I was very happy. I mean, the course was miserable at points. That's not what I'm saying, but the misery was enjoyed because I wanted to be there. And misery is totally different. Right? Like if you're on a football team and it's cold and it's freezing, but you're playing, you remember that it was cold and freezing, but it just has a different impact than, sitting in the stands, freezing to death. That makes sense. And I would say that, so my daughter was born and she turns 18 in 3 weeks. My daughter was born when I was in the Q course. She was born Sunday night.
Not the gray hair that makes you old.
Yeah. Yeah. She was born on Sunday night. And I was in the middle of I had just started, I was telling you before, the long portion of the medic course. And they asked me, they're like, hey, you just had a baby. It is okay if you cycle back into the class, but then that would put like a 45-day, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Setback. You know what I mean? And I didn't want to do that. I just didn't want to do that. So she was born Sunday night. And I was in class Monday morning at 7 a.m. And I was looking back. I still don't think I made the wrong decision. I just know that it was missed a lot.
Well, if you had to go back and do it again, would you change anything or do anything different?
Like, I think we are the sum of our choices. Um, and those sacrifices, now that she's old enough to see them, have given her a better life. It just wasn't fun for me. Does that make sense? Yeah, so I wouldn't go back and change it now. Because the only person that would be better off would be me.
Makes you appreciate things a lot more then.
Yeah.
What pressure would you say comes with wearing the Green Beret that outsiders don't really see or understand?
Thanks to Hollywood and the news, uh, people really want to see you make mistakes so they can point fingers and say, see, they're not really that good. And living under that kind of microscope gets tiring. It's incredibly tiring. And I said this a lot, and I'll always say it till I'm an old man. We probably fought more Americans in Afghanistan than we did actual Taliban. Easily. Easily. I never remember just being there and like working well with anyone, being like the winner. And now looking back, nobody was the fucking winner because everyone wanted to be the winner, you know? And I
Right.
just, that was probably the most frustrating part. And then when we did get in trouble, it was usually big. Like I said, like, when our guys unwind, they unwind.
Go big or go home.
Yeah, Delta, SEALs, all of them. You know, like, but yeah, like I said, looking back, you know, just the trip after trip after trip after trip, that shit changes you, man. And you don't know it. That's probably the scariest thing is like, you think you're still normal. You think you're still normal because you're in a room full of people who are changing with you, who also
And
think they're still normal.
exactly.
And it's not until you get around, you know, quote unquote normal people that you realize there's something wrong with us.
When when do you think your sense of identity started changing?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, as you mentioned, you're sitting in a room full of people that you all feel like you're normal, but you're all changing at the same time. At what point do you feel that your identity or your sense of identity and who you were, do when do you feel like that started to change?
Retirement, when you're finally alone, you'll never
How
see
did
it. You'll never see it until then.
how did it start changing for you?
It's not that like, so at that point, you know, I mean, we're talking about 25, 26 years in. At that point, like, I can't really talk to guys now. You know what I mean? Like, I know I'm like different. Everything about me is different. The way I look at the world's different. The way I approach it's different. Self-discipline is different. Doing what I say I'm going to do is different. Being where I'm supposed to be on time is different. Uh, Especially with men. I don't think I've really ever changed with women because I haven't worked with women since 2005. I mean, we worked with them, but like not in that capacity, if that makes sense. You know, like we had women in our battalions. You know what I mean? Uh, and sometimes, you know, they would combat camera in 2014. Like a lot of those pictures and videos, you know, I had to save her life because either she's the bravest person I've ever met, or just completely clueless. But the more bullets fly, like the more she would like walk around and just like take pictures. I remember
Could be
Sky
both.
asking, he's like, you know, that thing doesn't shoot back, right? She was just like, huh? Yeah. So she was still either the bravest person I've ever met or she was just completely clueless. I never figured it out.
Could
But
have been a combination of both.
yeah, you know, so I never really changed with girls but with guys, like I have a interacting with like civilian guys. Like I just, And that's when I really kind of knew. It was after when I retired that I was like, all right, I am not the same person I was a long time ago. Because you assume that it would be easy, just the way I joke, the way I'm just like, oh man, that's fucking stupid. You're stupid. I can't. I have tried that, like, and I've literally seen grown men fall apart, and I'm just like, I don't know how to talk to you, you know, and that's kind of why I poured myself into DJing because it's like I'm by myself. I tried a job. I was there for like 6 weeks. That was it.
What job did you try out?
So I worked the nightlife here at right because I'm a DJ, so I wanted to kind of like get into like the nightlife scene. I was like, oh, this is kind of a cool way to do it. Um, you know, worked the nightlife. Yeah, one of the most hopping spots, at the time in Tampa. And that's when I really like it. Really, like it was a real crash course of like, I just all right, motherfucker. Like, I can't. I'm not going to listen to you. This is not fucking happening. It's not happening. Sorry. You're short and fat and stupid. Not fucking listening to you. You know what I mean? I'm not doing it. And yeah. So I had to stop doing that. And I told the patron that I was gonna choke the shit out of him. So yeah. That's when I knew, man. That's what I'm telling you. Like it didn't come till after I retired.
I mean, sometimes they
I know he
need
deserved it.
encouragement.
Yeah, but I don't know. Apparently I was supposed to like, I don't know, coddle him or something. I absolutely did not do that. In my head, I was like, it's a full grown fucking man. You know what I mean? You're like, oh yeah. All right, man, I can't do this.
So now, early on in the podcast, you mentioned that, you've been into music since you were like 5, 6
Yeah.
years old. At what point did it stop being background noise and start becoming necessary?
It's never been background noise to me. And I think that's kind of like why it's so different to me. It's never been background noise. Music has been a part of everything I've ever done. Like I am here to tell you that I cannot remember what I did last week, but I can remember songs and where I was at from 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Um, and I think that's kind of why, like, I was always like, I knew I had to do something with it. Um, I mean, I could take you all the way back to like when the MP3 players, first started. I remember I was watching Blade. I think it was Blade 2 or 3, where the girl had the iPod. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but I want it. But I remember being in Iraq in 2003 and I was like downloading songs and putting them on people's like whatever they were at the time, like 256 megabyte, like MP3 player. I was like the first person to do that. You know what I
Well,
mean?
and in order to shuffle, you had to swirl your finger around the outer ring in order for it to
Yeah.
go.
But it wasn't even an iPod. It were just like these random ass like MP3 players that they had, but
Okay.
I was literally taking songs like off, when Napster first came, like I was putting stuff together and like I was giving it to people like, for like gym mixes and stuff like that. Um, in 2001, when I was in Afghanistan, we had the little Motorola's and I would be a DJ radio host to keep the kids from not getting bored to death in the towers. Yeah, because I was at E6 then, now I play music for hours, whole thing, whole shebang. Like they felt like they were on the radio, like and that's what I mean. Like it's never been, like I said, I got in trouble to shop it for loud music. So it's never really been background. Not to me, it hasn't. It's always been like everywhere. I can't even get in a car without it.
So now, how did the name DJ Halo come to represent who you are now?
It was just that to this day, that was like just one of my favorite. So I wanted it to be DJ Adic, right? Um, and that is the advanced tactical infiltration course. Uh, and that's actually where this symbol came from. So when you see that symbol with the jump wings and the star, that's the Adic symbol. A lot of people don't know that, but I earned that. So I know no one's ever going to like say, oh, you can't use that. I went to that school and graduated. Like 8 of us, me, like 2 SEALs, 4 free fall instructors. So it was very miserable, but anyways, but ATIC. And I remember, I forgot who was one of my friends, and I showed him, and he was like, DJ Attic? And I was like, all right, I'm not dealing with that for the next 20 years. Because when you look at it, you're like, oh yeah, but it's not pronounced like that. But I don't feel like being like, oh, it's not pronounced like that for the next, whatever. But I wanted to use something because that was, I have a lot of good memories of jumping. And it was dangerous. And sometimes it was miserable, but I don't have any bad memories of it. And that was one of the funnest parts, purest parts. I could say that of my career. Even not even just, jumping halo or jumping, free fall, because it's called MMF PC, military free fall parachutist. Halo is just a acronym for the jump profile. There's Halo and HAHO, all right? High altitude, low opening, high altitude, high opening. It just sounds cooler. But even just like going to airborne school at Fort Benning, a JM school at Division Master School in 2003. All of those moments are always like pure. They were never corrupted. They were never not fun. They were never, it was just like, this is what you have to do. There's really no way to can't BS you. It's like going to the gym, right? A 45-pound plate weighs 45 pounds. You can't shit talk it. You can't pay it off. You know what I mean? You can't use charisma. You gotta fucking lift it. If you're not strong enough, it ain't going up. Care who you are. And those schools were the same way. Nobody. You're gonna have to fucking leave this aircraft. You know what I mean? You can't smooth talk your way through this. And you're gonna have to know where you're at on the earth. You know what I mean? Like nobody's gonna give this to you. And to me, that was just very pure. So I took that name because that was, jumping was like the high point of like my career. That was special to me.
Now, would you say DJing is more about expression, control, or just release in general? Or all of the above?
Expression. I've had some miserable moments, and I can come in here and like play to myself for 2 hours and leave feeling completely differently. And then, like I said on one of my highlight reels on IG, too, I've been surrounded and involved in so much chaos and violence, and honestly, just seeing humans, put in a postcard, just seeing humans at their worst nature for decades, the absolute worst that humanity has to offer. And DJing really helps me like be around people when they're happy. And that has helped a lot. Birthdays, sweet 16s, quinceañeras, weddings. And no matter what like personal, traumatic marriage experience I may have, you're still there. Everybody can be, I don't care how bad the divorce was. Most people can go back to their reception and be like, that was still a good time. You know what I mean? Just who was there? Your family was there. You were drunk. It was fun. You were younger. The marriage may have been a shit show. Everybody can usually go back to the reception and be like, yeah, that was a good time. And there's people that were there that I love that are no longer here. You know what I mean? So just festivals, outdoor festivals. Yeah. Being around people during like just positive moments.
So now when you go into a DJing event, do you read the crowd more or less the same way that you once did an environment, or how does that work now that you're out, you're retired, and how do you read the crowd?
So for me, like my intuition has never changed. It's never changed. It's kept me alive all these years. I do it the same way, exact same way. Like I feel my way through it. Like I really, really tried for a very, very long time to have like, all right, these are the pre-planned songs I'm going to play, and that's it. And it just, like I said, like that, it doesn't work for me. My brain isn't structured that way. My brain is structured to operate in the gray. I thrive in the gray. So I kind of approach DJ sets the same way. Like I just put like, I think they're gonna like this. And after about the first 2 or 3 songs, I'll know, and I'll just shift. And something that I really, 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 really give the Army credit for is like, and this is something that you can very, very well understand. Is just like that amount of time, like living with so many different humans from so many different walks of life has exposed me. Because for me, right, I've always been into music, but I've listened to so many different genres of what people love throughout the years. It is hard to find a genre that I don't know, or that I don't know well. You know, you're gonna have to go into like weird jazz that nobody listens to. You know what I'm saying? Or like Viking rock, random off the wall shit. You know, like I'd say all the time, hilariously, like one of my best friends, Sky, he he's retired now, but he was on my ODA. He was a weapons sergeant. Amazing guy. Amazing guy. Before he joined the Army, he was the lead singer in a heavy metal band. Like he showed me the pictures and everything, like a little mohawk and yeah. Yeah, his parents were like, "Oh, you're gonna be a shit show. You know, you're never gonna amount to nothing." He's gone on to live a good life, but that's what I mean. Just like that variety of musical genres. And I think any Army guy who spent any time on deployments understands that. Just the amount of different things that you hear, you know. So yeah, I think that's what's always kind of like made me different. And that's kind of why I don't really have to like put together a super long, like, I'm going to play this set. Cause I just know it. I know different crowds. I know different demographics. Yeah. I just did a country and rock wedding like 2 or 3 weeks ago. That's all I wanted to hear. And we had a blast. Yeah.
I mean, the DJ is, the one that's supposed to make everything fun. So, I mean, if you
Yeah.
can't
Well, I
do
always
it,
say that,
then
it's 50% the DJ and 50% liquor.
yeah, I'll give you that. I'll give you that. Good tequila always helps.
Yes. Yes. Good tequila helps. My favorite drink actually is a spicy margarita.
Okay.
That is my favorite. It has been for a long time.
What's your favorite tequila to put in it?
So I usually just ask for whatever they have. But I think I usually go with Casamigos when I'm drinking it.
We got to work on your tequila selection.
Yeah, because I didn't actually like. So I can't do shots of tequila. I can't do it. I cannot do it. But I love margaritas and I love mojitos.
Mojitos are good too. I don't like doing shots. I'll sip on tequila neat, and
I could do that.
I'll sip on it all night long.
I could do that. But yeah, the tahini rim and the jalapenos in it, it makes it perfect for me.
Okay, good to
Yeah.
know. One of the things that, I kind of want to segue into now is more like the mental health stuff of the military, you know, getting out. When did you realize you were carrying more than just memories from service?
What do you mean?
I'm sure that you lost guys, throughout. And I'm sure some of the losses may be a lot heavier on you than others, but what point did you realize that you were carrying more than just memories and that you carry like the weight of that?
Man, like for me, it's always been like just different. I've always carried the memory of whatever decision that I made that put someone in like a certain situation heavier than the actual loss of someone, if that makes sense. Like for example, we did op in 2014 and I don't even remember what the fuck the name of this goddamn, I don't know, shithole village somewhere in Afghanistan. But I remember I was sitting up there, Sky was up there. Um, there's an EOD guy that I love to death. He was up there with us. And then we had like a few Afghans. I actually have this on video, but we were getting shot at from 2 different directions. That EOD kid saved my life that day. He's like, "We're probably gonna start getting shot at from the other direction." I was just like, "Huh?" Literally, like 2 seconds later, like a bullet pinged off the rock in front of me. It's like, "Oh," you can see me in the video, like, get up, come out the other side. Um, yeah, I really like that. Andrew, that's his name, Andrew Jansen. Anyways, so I was like, "Hey, we're gonna go over here, right?" So I pulled Sky and Andrew off. I had the Afghan 240 gun team like reposition themselves up on the rock. And then like, try to lay down suppressive fire. Literally like 10 minutes later, that dude got shot through the chest and died, and I just I have that on video, like carrying him, off the top of that rock, and just kind of like, I made that decision. Nobody else. You know what I mean? Would I change my decision? No, because you had to have we needed to have a heavy gun team on Overwatch, because we were fighting at that day probably like 500 to 600 meters, and M4s just weren't going to do it. We had scars, but I didn't have one. I still have my M4 because I just so used to it. I didn't want to change. So we needed a machine gun team up there, but I just always was like, maybe I should have barricaded it better, sandbagged it, maybe moved them back in better defilade, but when somebody, and that dude died, man, like in like 3 minutes, and then we brought him down the hill and we zipped him up. And the thing about that is you got to carry that guy around the rest of the day, because you're not staying at that spot. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? So it's things like that, and another time we were in Japan. Yeah, that's where that fucking place is. Wow, that place is dangerous. And the reason is, I mean, it's unclassified now, but so Japan comes almost into a Y in a valley. A huge smuggling trail from Pakistan down into Zabul, down into Kandahar. And the SEALs used to have a fob there, and it was like, I don't know, 85 ticks a year. It was wild. It's wild up in there. But yeah, we were there, and I was in charge again. Team sergeant had to go do something stupid that he didn't want to go do, but he had to go do it. It was dumb, but he had to go do it. So he had to fly somewhere. Thing about SF-teams, we frequently get split up doing nonsense, but the show goes on. And like I said, I was the most senior guy. Yeah, so we infill. Got this on video too, but that whole day was a shit show. Like, we lost air. They flanked us on 3 sides. They were shooting at us at one point from 3 sides. I mean, like heavy fire. And I sent one of my junior guys out on the patrol. And I remember Sky was so upset because Sky was he was at SC1. But he ended up going with him, and thankfully he did. Thank God. But they got pinned down for probably an hour. Couldn't move. And then we had this stupid ass Afghan guy, and he just wouldn't fucking listen. This guy was trying to tell him, like, don't go down to the riverbed. They're raking it. You know what I mean? PKM with PKM fire, 7.62 fire, and then motherfucker didn't live. They ended up dragging his ass back from the fucking river. But that whole they couldn't evacuate him out. And then I had our combat controller call in a medevac like 2 or 3 times, but I kept telling him, you got to wave it off because the LZ's hot. You can't land. And that dude ended up dying. You know what I mean? But that whole patrol was put together, by me. And we still had a whole another like 24 hours to go, because we exfilled that night, flew to a different part of the valley, re-infilled, and then continued fighting. You know what I'm saying? So it was a 2-day long shit show.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was wild. there's a lot of shit that happened down there. Like there was a massive friendly fire incident there, like literally like 4 months later with another ODA that went in there. Like it's a very dangerous area. Um, but that's what I mean, just kind of like stuff like that. So it's not really much like, I know the movie portrays it as like my buddy dies and I'm sad, but it's not, for me, it was never really like that. It was just because I've been in charge. I've been in E6 since 2001. So I've been in charge of people since September 11th. So after 14 years of fucking rotating in and out of combat zones, at that point, I had made so many decisions regarding other human beings' life, right? And then I was a JM, taking care of people's lives, and those ones were always the ones that fuck. And even like when people didn't die, like I would make a bad decision about a troop and then they would be miserable or it would adversely affect their life. And, you wouldn't really know that until years down the road. And I think that is what I will always carry with me. Not so much the loss, but just the decision that led to it. Makes sense?
Yeah. And as you talk about the decisions that have affected others, what do you feel that the elite training fails to prepare you for emotionally?
I mean, you can't really prepare for that. I mean, there is no training to prepare for that. Like you can't. Like those are things that like you don't know how you're gonna react. I mean, they can't shoot at you. Do you know what I mean? And that's the only thing that'll really prepare you for that. They would have to like mangle you or mangle your friend, How do you feel about that? And that's the rigors of a war zone. Like you don't know what it's gonna do to you. You don't know how you're gonna react. You can prepare, but yeah, I actually have a Afghan guy on video doing it. I have truly seen that moment where a kid is so overwhelmed with gunfire that they freeze completely and cannot move. There is nothing that can prepare you for that. Like you're never going to know until until you're in the middle of it. I've had army kids, that were just like, I don't know what to fucking do. And you kind of have to just go over there and like snap them out of it. Bro, just follow me. And I don't ever think it was because like, I was like a tough guy or anything. I just think that like you get so focused on like taking care of people that I never really had that opportunity to like get scared and then two, I know it's going to sound crazy, but I've always felt I just do very well in those moments. I don't really, it's almost like things slow down for me. I know that sounds weird and I laugh all the time, but like, especially when I first retired, like, what caused me to lose my shit? Like grocery shopping, furniture shopping, shit that I was supposed to know how to do as a, 40-something-year-old guy. And I was just like, I am fucking lost right now. And I would just get so overwhelmed that I would like have to go back to the car and like drive home. And I know that's crazy, but man, I could operate in a war zone the rest of my life and be just fine.
So, how damaging is the belief that strength means silence? Because I know when you grew up in the military, like if you showed it more or less any sort of emotion, you were picked apart, basically.
Uh, I mean, it wasn't necessarily that. It was just you got to think. Like, I lived in two different militaries. I mean, Bullet probably understands this better than anybody because he was in about 6 or 7 years before I was. I think he came in 88 and I came in 95. But I was in a true peacetime garrison army. So nobody was going crazy. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing at that time was just trying to get out of PT runs. You know what I mean? So it was like, oh, my foot hurts. Oh, I'm sick. Oh, I have a virus or I have the flu or whatever it was, But like I said, I had that first sergeant. He did not fucking care. if you went to a sick call in the morning, you had to do PT with him by yourself at 4:00 p.m. And that really cut the sick call numbers down to like 2 people. So that way he knew, like, if you went to sick call that, you were going to say something will hurt. But the point is other than like, maybe like sexual trauma and things like that, car accidents, just other random regular life, not regular, but you get the point, like adverse life events. We didn't really deal with that. And we didn't really see the effects of like mental health problems, like I said, until like 2009, 2010. Because, 2001, everybody was gun-ho. 2003, everybody was still gun-ho. 2005, everybody was kind of gun-ho. By the time kids were making that 2006, 2007 trip, they're like, man, I'm about tired of this shit.
Mm-hmm.
I missed a lot of life. I thought kids are growing up. So it didn't really start settling in until like 2008. But then the whole theater went away 2 years later. And a lot of those kids ETS'd. And a lot of those kids never got help. And it wasn't because they didn't ask for it or that they didn't want to receive it, but a lot of them didn't even know that. Like I said, like, you don't know a lot of this shit because you're surrounded by guys who are changing with you at the time you're changing. So you think you're normal because everyone around you acts the same. And that's kind of what I mean by like 2010, 2011. I'm trying to remember when I went to Enoch. I don't even think it was called Enoch when I went. I don't know what the fuck it was called. I don't know. It's not important. Whenever I went, I remember a kid, and that's crazy because at the time he said 10 years, but we were talking to like one of the generals, because I was in SF when I went to Enoch. I remember he was talking to one of the generals, but what he said was, he was just like, 10 years of mission first has a price. And to this day, that's still like one of the best quotes that summed it up ever since I've ever heard anyone ever say anything ever about it. And I will use that phrase forever. And he was right. But we didn't know that people were starting to unravel like that until like 2008, 2009. And that's what I mean, especially with like the units that were like just doing rotation after rotation after rotation, like the 173rd, and Korengal. A lot of those kids ETS'd. So by the time they were like, I need help, they weren't even in the Army to like, does that make sense? And yeah, during the first couple portions of the year, people were trying to just get out of the Army because they were just trying to, but as far as like full blown, like people are fucked up, we didn't really see that till like, I don't think so until like 2010, about 10 years after it started.
What do you think is harder, admitting that you need help or learning how to accept that you need help?
I think the hardest part is even knowing you need help. And that's kind of why I keep hitting that button. Like when everyone around you is crazy, you think you're normal. Does that make sense? It is not until you're alone that you're like, okay, maybe I'm not supposed to fucking just rage out on a guy at Buffalo Wild Wings. Because if you rage out on a guy at Buffalo Wild Wings on Skybo, you're probably with a lot of the kids in the Army who are also raging out at Buffalo Wild Wings on Skybo. And you're probably raging out against other guys who are also raging out against you at Buffalo Wild Wings on Skybo. Does that make sense? And when you're in that environment, it's normal because everybody's nuts.
And for those that don't know, that's like a daily occurrence at Buffalo Wild Wings on Skybo.
Yes. I think I went there since. It's a lot calmer now, but that's what I mean, and there's 30 fucking dudes there like losing their mind. You like, this is normal. This is how life is. It's not until you go back to Bakersfield, Idaho, and you're by yourself and you're at a stoplight and you're like, I'm going to get out of my car and shoot this motherfucker. And then you're like, your kid's like, what's wrong with you? And you're like, what do you mean? What's like, this is normal. And your kids are scared of you. And your wife is scared of you or your girlfriend's scared of you. And everyone's telling you you have anger issues, which only makes you angrier. And I don't really think people fucking get that. Like, the more you tell someone they have anger issues, it makes them fucking angrier. Stop saying that. Because they assume that you're going to have like this natural like reaction to things. And then like, you don't. And that's really when you have to learn that there's something wrong before you can either, to your question, accept the help or try to go find it. But a lot of us don't even know anything's wrong until somebody in our life that is like soft, and it's usually children, are scared of you. And I like my daughter called the cops on me one day. You know, she was terrified of me, and in my head I was like, "Why?" Well, I don't know. I'm not a little 15-year-old girl looking up at me. Do you know what I'm saying? When you look at it from that perspective, yeah, you've been a killer for fucking 20 years. Of course I'm gonna be scared of you. But in my head, I'm like, I would never hurt you. Why would you be scared of me? You know what I mean? And I think that was like the first step. I was like, man, something's fucking wrong with me. And then at that point, now I can make that decision. But I still think the hardest step to your question is just understanding that you may need to go talk to someone, which really I still don't fucking think works, but it's my opinion on it.
Listen, I am a firm believer in therapy. I hands down love going to my therapist. It has helped tremendously. Even when I had Quest on, I feel like he has put it best, is that everyone has their own way of therapy. For him, it's talking to plants, his plants that he has. Me, it's counseling. I love dealing with my counselor, doing different like EMDR and in different therapies like that. Like I feel like that helps. For you, which coping mechanisms have helped you and which ones quietly made things worse?
Well, again, that's why I don't really like therapists, because I hate that phrase coping mechanisms, because it makes it seem like you're keeping it, and that's really what it is. That's what a coping mechanism is. Like you're keeping a time bomb under wraps. It's gonna go off. The only way to figure that out is not to cope with it, it's to diffuse it. Does that make sense? Once I and I'm super analytical,
So am I.
especially especially inwardly. And I've talked to a lot of friends. What I will say is one day the drug stopped working. The BA drug cocktail. And then all those emotions just kind of like came back. So for me, the best way I've found to diffuse me is the self-guided meditation and the self-guided like spirituality. And like I know a lot of people like keep telling me to like go try this mushroom and go here and you'll feel that. I don't want to do that. And the reason I don't want to do that is because I want to be sound, of sound mind and body, when I really confront like myself on like just an inward level. And I think it's because I spent 3 decades getting really good at mental fitness, getting really good at physical fitness, but just that inward part that we really don't understand has been neglected since I was a kid. And I had to go discover like what was that? What is that? Why am I so angry? What am I still carrying? How do I truly release it? Does that make sense? And when I release it, I don't have to cope with it anymore. Right. That's why I don't like that phrase. Because now it's gone. It doesn't mean I don't remember it. It just now, like when I'm talking to you about it, it doesn't have the same emotional impact anymore. Like I don't regret the decisions I made. Like I cry about it. I regret the consequence of what happened. And I will always feel sadness for that, but it's a different sadness. I don't feel like I'm carrying it around every day sadness. Does that make sense? So being able to release a lot of these things deep, deep, deep inside has really helped me to calm down. And because of that, I have really reduced the VA drug cocktail. Because when I first started, I thought that the drugs were going to fix me, and they did, because I had never taken medicine. And so I finally went to sleep, I still have insomnia. I think I'm probably going to have that the rest of my life, but the first
You
time I went to sleep for 8 hours,
you and me both.
Yeah, I don't know what that is, but I'm going to have insomnia the rest of my life. But what I will say is I've reduced all of those prescriptions to their lowest dose. And then I was talking to Quest about one of his friends, and he went, south and, tried the new like mushrooms and all that and felt better. But one thing that he did say that stuck with me that I felt is that just every day you're like, there's no joy. There's no happiness. Everything felt like a task. And I can say finally, over about the last 2 months, 3 months, it's all brand new. That's why, I didn't mind doing the podcast, because if you'd have caught me a year ago, I couldn't have did it. I just I wasn't ready. I don't know. I don't know who would have been sitting in front of you, but it wasn't the same person that's here right now.
Well, I appreciate the person that's sitting in front of me right now. And, you know, even 2005, 2004, 2005, 2006, I looked up to you tremendously, just like I did Bullet. You know, you guys were pillars in the MP Corps, in the 108th, and you brought back people that otherwise, given different leadership, the outcome could have been way different.
It's dangerous.
For sure. So now that you are retired and you have the DJ life, how do you redefine purpose when services define so much of your life?
Honestly, man, for me, it's the same. And it's not even really DJing. Like, I love DJing. I just love music, but it's not my purpose, if that makes sense. I just love to do it. It's not my purpose. I'm going to take it somewhere because that's just me. I'm a fucking busybody. If you've ever met me, like, if I'm doing something, it's going to have to be like the best.
No.
Like, yeah, I won't be able to fucking sit down unless it is. But I enjoy it. So DJing is a passion, but it's not my purpose. My purpose has never changed. I've always loved teaching people. Always. That's something else that I found out that I was really good at as like an E4, and that has carried through the years. Now, I was coaching my son's football team, but just being around boys 10, 11, 12 years old in their formative years, that's my purpose. Not necessarily, that age group, but just mentoring and teaching youth. Right. Because I've already said that I can't really tolerate fucking adults. I just can't. I can't do it. Too fucking soft. Especially for me. Like, I can't tolerate them. Maybe college kids, maybe. But anything over 25, I don't want to fucking talk to you.
Fair enough.
Kids. So it's the same. Like, I've always loved teaching. I've always loved guiding. I've always loved leading. I'm just but yeah, coaching football really kind of was like, I really enjoy this. It feels the same. Like, and the reason I say that is because when you used to have troops, right? Like when you were like an old E7 and you've been to combat a million times. And I remember, like, because we would take kids on ops with us so they could get their whatever badge it was. But they'd be like E3s and E4. They were still so young. And it would just be like, and you said they were like, okay. Man, fucking Sarge said, do it, man. See his gun. His gun is so cool. Because they were standing around in like their ACU gear, just looking ridiculous. But that look in their eyes, that thirst for knowledge, I've loved that. Not even from a power standpoint. I just truly enjoy making people's lives better or teaching them.
So
now, somehow, some way, I'm going to transfer that into the youth here. Obviously, my son's going to go into high school and then, have his own football coach. Um, because, he's really good at sports, but I haven't quite figured out how to do that yet. But that, if I had to say what was my purpose, that's my purpose. DJing is just my passion. But it's not really my purpose that I was put here for.
So what does success look like for you now?
Time freedom, because that's what I think I lost the most of after 28 years in the Army. My time, that's irreplaceable. So success means that I have the financial stability to be able to go and come as I please and do what I want to do with my time. And, that's like I turned a lot of GS jobs down, oh, you can make a lot of money and then you have your retirement, make lots of money, but like none of that matters to me more than just freedom.
Inner peace.
Yeah. It's just that like patient tomorrow. I don't have to tell anybody. I don't have to ask anybody other than like, my kids are going to be with their mom, like, cause she lives like 2 miles down the road. Other than that, cause you can never take off from parenting. Like I'm out of here. And that's what success looks like to me. Time freedom.
Well, Javier, I appreciate your time. Where can everyone find you on social media?
Oh yeah. So I'm at Javi.Echols on IG. Everything else is DJ Halo Tampa. All one word. To almost said Twitch, but not Twitch. The hell is it? TikTok, Facebook, my website and then I'm on the radio, www.hotmicradio.com, the Flight Deck Live every Tuesday. I've said this about 1,000,000 times now. 6 to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Tuesday.
And if you get a chance, tune in everyone to DJ Halo and his radio station every Tuesday night.
Oh, yeah. And then my SoundCloud, same thing, DJ Halo Tampa.
Perfect.
It's the same.
Well, again, I thank you for your time and thank you everyone for tuning in. Have a good night.